To the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello, and you are listening to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. And boy, do we have a good show planned for you. Why do you ask? That's a fair question, because Naushad Huda is our guest. He is both an employee as the senior principal within Slalom, and he's an entrepreneur as he is one of the founders of I Like This Grape. So welcome to the program, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get right into it. I'm excited to have you back. You're one of the few returning guests we've had on the program, but when we had you on the show, you and I were slightly younger, my friend, because we've been on the air for 15 years, and you were one of the early guests on the program.
Yeah, I feel like I should have a placard on the wall behind you.
Yeah, or we should have a badge that comes up on your video
right.
that Haley shows, like founding guest or something. Okay,
right.
First year guest. But let's talk about your latest incarnation, and that's at Slalom. Tell us about the attraction. What was the inspiration, motivation you had to join the firm?
Yeah, so Slalom is, for those who don't know, it's about a 14,000 person global management consulting firm, right? So we compete with the likes of Deloitte and Accenture and those kinds of entities that many people have heard of. In that world, we are probably the largest of the smallest consulting firms, but we definitely play with the big boys. To answer your question of why did I decide to come here, especially being an entrepreneur right after law school, was I think a couple of reasons. I think one was in the world that I was in previously with my previous company, right after I had sold it. Now, I sold it because I was getting burnt out, right? I've been an entrepreneur for 10 plus years. In those 10 plus years, I got married. I had 2 kids. And quite frankly, I was just getting burned out. And so I needed to kind of step away from that world for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Which is what initiated the sale of it. And then between that and trying to, figure out what I wanted to do next, as you get older, you get more risk averse, or you become a little bit more, you want more stability. And I was like, let me try this job thing, this 9 to 5, and see how this works. But Slalom was quite interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One was they truly have an entrepreneurial spirit about them. The people that founded the firm almost 30 years ago still run the firm. It's a privately held company. They encourage and really support their consultants to be curious, which is a big deal for me, just as a life principle.
Right.
And they really support you to be entrepreneurial, unlike some of the other firms. So that's the first reason. The second reason that attracted me and why I ultimately chose to come here was, it's really easy for people or companies to say we put our people first. That's a very simple thing to say, I think. I think it's much harder in practice. Who doesn't say that? Yeah, who doesn't say that, right? During COVID, and so I started here 2.5 years ago, right? So after kind of everything COVID. When COVID happened in 2020, we're a professional services firm. If you're going to tell a professional services firm that you have to go work from home and all business is stopping, there's not a widget that we sell. We sell people's time. What do you think that's going to do to an organization like this? The senior leadership and owners of the company came out, within a few weeks after COVID and said, look, guys, we're not going to lay off anybody. Let's just put that off the board. Okay. We are actually going to double down on things that we believe in. Number one, relationships. We need you to go out there and make sure that your relationships with our customers and our clients are strong. Number two, here is an actual and practical plan that we're going to put into place to make sure that we don't have to lay off anybody for reasons of, there not being enough work. We've had cash reserves, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut bonuses for senior staff, et cetera, et cetera. They had an actual plan and they implemented that plan. That plan led to the organization growing, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but 20% in terms of headcount and revenues, quite a bit more. I think So it's when you say people first, that's one thing, but when you actually put it into action, that's a whole other thing. And so that really motivated me and was like, you know what, these people really put their money where their mouth is. And so I want to be part of that world.
I need to react to that because for those of us that were in business during the early days of COVID, there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Coupled with a lot of fear about, well, how bad could this get? Because we still kind of had PTSD from the Great Recession. It wasn't that long ago. And so for the leaders of your company to make the statement, we're not going to lay anybody off, that's a big risk for them to take. I mean, that really speaks volumes of where their true commitments are. So to your point, that really is, because a standard corporate message would be ... at this time, as far as we know, because that's, you can't go back on that if you want to maintain your culture.
No. No, and the company hasn't had layoffs. The first time the company actually had to have layoffs, I think, was in 2000. It's public knowledge. Was in 2023. That was the first time in the company's history, and that was because I think they just didn't. It's a management of growth. I think everybody had this kind of an issue. We grew too fast. Well, then just scaling, that whole thing. But first time in 30 years, and we didn't even do it during COVID. I think says a lot about the organization. Even that, the way they even handled that was with a ton of empathy and very strategic in the way they did it by always putting people first. So long answer to your first question.
Okay. And that was fantastic. So the second question is, now tell me a little bit more about Slalom. You sort of said a little bit in the beginning, but really, who do you help? What kind of clients do you work with? What problems are you solving?
Sure.
Who gets the most value out of an engagement with your firm?
Enterprise customers. So locally, that would be here, like the likes of the Irvine Company, the major airlines, big healthcare and life sciences practice, huge in auto manufacturing, energy. So it's larger organizations that are really looking to transform a part of their business. That could be sales marketing, that could be contact centers, which is where the division, kind of the focus of the work that I do. It's strategy, it's experiences. And what the company does is twofold. It's strategy and implementation. So we're Salesforce's largest implementation partner, number 1 or number 2 in the world. Amazon's first or second largest implementation partner in the world. So it's a lot of implementation, but that implementation is rooted and grounded in strategy across people, process, and technology.
I do a lot of shows with entrepreneurs and with SMB business owners, and sometimes we have enterprise clients, guests on the show. I think sometimes it's hard for people that close to the business. You're a founder, you're living it every day. When these larger firms, they kind of can lose their way a little bit when they have scale, and needing to get back to the essence of what the strategy for the business is so important before they spend money on the tactics and the implementation, isn't it?
It is, and I think strategy is one of those terms where it's an eye roll of a term. And I'm a strategist, and I'm telling you, it's an eye roll of a term. It's like, what does that even mean? But a lot of it is just answering. It's sometimes asking the most basic of questions and getting to the heart of why. I start most of my engagements with clients and saying, look, I'm giving myself complete freedom as a strategist to ask you the most question. And I just need you to roll with me. I'm going to ask you questions that are very, very basic at times. So please just indulge me. And you start to understand that, when we get down to brass tacks, it's sometimes not as clear cut as to why we're doing this. We want to go and do generative AI, right? We think it's cool. It's going to make our life easier. It's going to, whatever you think it's going to do. And it could do those things. I'm not debating that. But I want to get to, why are we doing it? Why are we doing it now? And how are we going to measure success against this? How do we know that the investment we're about to make is going to pay off? Part of my job, I feel like, is to protect the investment that you're about to make. And from an SMB standpoint, this is as simple as, I used to use Excel to manage my contacts. My company is growing. I probably need to get a more sophisticated system, that's more sophisticated than an Excel. I need to get a CRM because I need to really manage how my sales process is going. Right? We're talking about that. And of course, there's scale to these things. But at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. It's like, how do I go from this to this, and why? And how am I going to measure success?
Because it's in those details that the employees can either become truly engaged in the vision or disengaged from the vision. Because if you don't have the credible answers to the why question and how, people go, they don't really understand.
Yeah.
This is,
You're actually hitting on something pretty important as well, which is, my examples were talking about technology, and I think you're talking about the people, which is sometimes not considered, but it's probably the most important piece of this, because once you make a technology change, whatever that technology is, I don't mean to harp only on tech, in order to get people to adopt to it, because at the end of the day, it's people at your firm, your organization, your 5-person company or your 500-person company that have to use the stuff.
Right.
And if they're not bought in to the why of why I need to use it, and how is it going to help me? Mm-hmm. How is it going to make my job easier, better, faster? How can I serve our customers better? Then there is no point. You're not going to get the adoption that you need. And there goes your investment down the toilet. Mm. I'm being dramatic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So you're in such a unique position. I was excited when I saw that Haley and you were talking about having you back on the show, because like I said in the open, I first encountered you as a founder, as a startup, as an entrepreneur. And now here we are all these years later. You've had that experience. You mentioned how you became an employee and entrepreneurial and now an employee. How do you manage the mindset that is required to be successful as an entrepreneur versus as an employee? Because I do think they are a slightly different mindset.
Yeah, they are slightly different mindsets. I don't know if there's a good answer to this, but I can tell you just my own world and my own life requires there to be stability, right? Again, I have 2 kids, I have stability, and I have to be a little risk averse. However, my employment allows me to still tap into all the passion and the speed of an entrepreneur. Mm. If I worked at an organization that didn't allow me to be me and work at the speed and sometimes, ask forgiveness versus permission.
Right.
If I didn't have that ability here, I don't think that I would succeed here. And a lot of times I notice, I shouldn't say a lot of times, I've noticed just in my experience working at Slalom is that mindset that I have, that to me and to other entrepreneurs is just natural. That's just who we are and how we operate.
Right. How you see the world.
How we see the world is not necessarily how people who have grown up in corporate see it.
Right.
An entrepreneur will look at something and be like, okay, I think I know how to solve this. Let me try these 2 things, or what about this? That's the way we think, right? We're not thinking, oh, that is not how we do things here, or that is not part of. Sorry, the lights out here. That is not part of our process, or what have you, right? To us, it's like we're just going to go.
Right.
Okay. And so that's the benefit of coming from an entrepreneurial world. Sorry, the lights went off here. That's the benefit of having that mindset coming into a structure like this. On the flip side, what being in this world has taught me is rigor. I'm far more rigorous in how I do things. I can still be as creative as I want. I can still be as fast as I want, but I certainly do it with a lot more intentionality. So I think there's beauty in both of those worlds. And I'm just learning that as I move along.
And as you were talking, your clients are large organizations.
Correct. Yeah.
So you have to be able to adapt sort of your positioning so they can hear you as well, because
that's right. You have to frame things in a certain way in order for it to be heard. You're right.
Big companies prefer to do business with other large companies, multinationals. It just seems to take the risk out of it. It just seems to be a better way to go.
Yeah. So. But it's funny. I think that's a perspective that I certainly had from the outside looking into an organization like Slalom.
Okay.
But when I'm in here and the clients that I work with who are, senior executives, many of them want something different. And they say that a lot to their consultants, bring me something different.
Oh, good.
And so when you bring people who have a mindset of an entrepreneur, I think that is the difference many times. They appreciate it more than they resist it.
And that's probably why you're being so successful at Slalom. I wonder if you could share a piece, you're sharing a bunch of nuggets, but a piece of business advice someone gave to you that you can pay it forward with my audience today.
I'll give you a practical one, and then I'll give you an abstract one. A practical one that someone told me a long, long time ago when I was an entrepreneur was, don't do 30-day billing terms, do 15-day billing terms. I told you, it's very practical.
That's genius.
But it is a very, very good, it really helped me quite a bit, right? Because when you're an entrepreneur, you're running a small business, you have to really manage your cash flow.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's like, it's everything. 30-day terms, especially when you're giving it to a larger organization, especially if your clients are slightly bigger, that turns into 45 days real quick. And you've already passed, the implications could be dramatic, right? So just do 15-day terms. Just do 15-day terms. The other advice, I don't think it's a single piece of advice. I think it's just an amalgamation. Am I saying that term correctly? Amalgamation, a combination of things that I've heard throughout my career, which I've distilled nowadays into like 3 basic ideas in terms of like advice. And this is really advice that I give to myself almost every day. Number 1 is just to stay curious. And I think that's a hallmark of any entrepreneur. And I think it bodes well, no matter if you're an entrepreneur or if you're an employee. And I think it's invaluable, especially in today's world when things move as quickly as they do. Just to always stay curious. I think the second thing is to be accountable for not knowing something. I understand. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, we always try to fake the funk or, fake it till you make it. That's a very popular term. But at times you got to say, just look, I don't know. And that's okay. And I'm going to find out for you though. Mm-hmm. And I think the third thing, which I can't overstate, is leading and doing everything with integrity. Because your reputation is your currency as you move along in life, whether you continue to be an entrepreneur or you become an employee or whatever in your life. Your reputation and how you conduct yourself is the largest currency you have.
Well, we got the bonus round here for that answer, which I appreciate. That's awesome. I love all of that, and I really resonate with the stay curious, because I think having worked with entrepreneurs for as long as I have now, if there is one common quality, it's this curiosity that sometimes can be taxing, to be honest. When you're around a person who's asking a lot of questions because they genuinely want to know, or everything could be better, those kind of.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but curiosity, it's one of the things that I say to young people, young entrepreneurs. So, what's a quality that successful people have? It's curiosity. You could never have enough of it. So thank you for that. All right, let's talk about artificial intelligence, technology. How do you see it influencing your clients? How do you see, just in your sense, share with us your view of the impact of artificial intelligence?
I think that we're just at the cusp of understanding what it can fully do. I think that it's very easy for our minds or people's minds to go to a negative place when we think about AI and say, well, it's going to take away jobs. What am I going to do? What's my kid's future look like? What does my future look like? Because this thing can do everything, which is not necessarily true. I think that, well, how about this? I'll give you an example of some research I did recently for a client. So I work in Slalom's contact center transformation team. It's a global team that does large transformations across contact centers and service for large organizations. So contact centers or service centers are ripe in terms of a bed for where AI can really advance and help performance, help customer experience, reduce costs, and et cetera. I was doing research for a customer that was very concerned about, well, my people's jobs are going to be completely taken away, right? And there is some truth to that. I'm not saying there's not truth to that. However, there's a research that was done, it was on HBR. So if you have any HBR case studies out there, and if people want this case study, I'm happy to print it out and send it to you in a soft copy. I'm not going to actually hand deliver a printout to you. Where an organization researched a number of contact centers that were experimenting with AI, and they wanted to understand, is AI going to really eliminate all these jobs, or how much of an impact is it going to have in what areas? And I actually wrote down some of the stats that were interesting. The first thing that this organization did, this research organization, was to break down the number of tasks that a typical CSR, customer service rep, does. And they came up with a number of 13. And then they asked themselves, well, if we implemented AI in these 13 tasks, what happens? Okay, 4 of those tasks stayed the same. 4 became fully automated. 5 needed to be augmented, 5 of them augmented the human's work, means it made it better or it made it faster. And the most interesting part, because that's 13 right there, is they had 5 new high-value tasks that emerged.
Wow.
Right? So of the 13 tasks, 4 fully automated, 4 stayed the same, 5 enhanced the human CSR in their job performance, and then 5 brand new tasks emerged, right? We did not know what a prompt engineer was 8 months ago. That was not a job, but now it's a job, and it's not even a technical job, right? So I don't think we fully know, and I go back to my first point, we don't fully know where this is going to go. We're at the tip of the iceberg. I personally believe that it's going to create more jobs, create more skilled employees. I think things like higher cognitive tasks are going to become more important. Communication skills, empathy, understanding a moral compass of some sort. I think those things are going to be a bigger part of it. So that's the way we think about AI. So we, from a Slalom perspective, is we don't think it's going to fully get rid of jobs. I think the framework that we follow in terms of at least customer service here, or contact center transformation, is you try to eliminate what you can. And by that, I mean, like on-prem legacy, customer service platforms. You'd be surprised how many of those there are. Eliminate complex IVR systems. So eliminate what you can,
right?
Automate what you should. So certain things should be automated. Knowledge-based articles, chat for chatbots for customer service, certain manual workflows, automate those. So eliminate what you should, automate what you can, and optimize the rest, right? And optimize the rest meaning things like knowledge management. How do we optimize our knowledge management process? How do we optimize the agent's experience in terms of the different screens that they have to go to help a customer? Things like that.
It sounds like your company's view is supported by the research from the Harvard Business Review.
I think so. It's very similar.
I'd have to, and this is a wild ass guess, that the tasks that were fully automated were the kind of tasks that the CSR may not love doing anyway. And you're freeing them up maybe to do more of the cognitive stuff. And I would hope that the 5 new are perceived by the client as being a value add. Now you're doing something above and beyond. So that's a very inspiring article. And if you're listening today or in the future as a recording off of one of the platforms, that may be an article you want to look a little bit more into, because it's data, which is always nice. Yeah. Okay, final question for you, my friend. Yeah. You're still an entrepreneur underneath all this conversation that we've had, and you're also someone who enjoys and knows about wine. So talk to me about I Like This Grape.
So I Like This Grape is a company that I started some time ago. And it was really based on this simple observation. So wine, which I do love, I'm geeky about it. I kind of collect it. I think it's a wonderful human experience because of how important it's been across multiple cultures throughout history. It gives me an opportunity to travel without sometimes traveling. I get to learn about people and culture and history, through this living thing, which I love. So, having said that, observation is this: wine is a multi-billion-dollar global industry. Its consumers, from my perspective, this was a perspective from several years ago, were changing how people discover wine, how they experience wine, how they become loyal to a brand or a grape or a something in wine, and how they become advocates. Is changing and shifting from where this industry is, right? So there's a misalignment. Things are not aligned. So now how do you get modern consumers to appreciate, learn about, and experience wine? That's the question of which I Like This Grape is trying to answer, right? And to date, we've done two main things. One is we've published a book series, which includes two books currently. The first one is called Drive Through Napa Valley, and the second book is called Drive Through Paso Robles. Yes, they're available on Amazon. And the purpose of the books is not to tell you where to go. We're not interested in that. What we are interested in is, I imagine a world or a use case where a person who either has been to Napa Valley or Paso Robles several times, or someone who's never been to those places, if I give you enough information about the sub-regions of that area, no matter what winery you go to, you'll have the intelligence to ask the right questions for you to then discover the next winery. I'm simply equipping you with the curiosity for you to ask the right questions to then go explore this place for yourself. Because there's several hundred wineries in both of these, viticulture areas. I can't tell you where to go. I don't know who you are.
Right.
And I have no interest in doing that. I think the value of wine is its discoverability. So that's what the books do. And it's funny, the unintended benefit of the book is that a lot of wineries use it to train their staff about those regions.
Jeez.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's the books. The second thing that I did to sort of answer the question of how do you make wine more relatable to consumers or modern consumers is I started a winemaker pop-up experience called VINOPOP. So it's vinopopevents.com. And for that, I researched why people like going to tasting rooms. I mean, Rick, I don't know if you drink wine or not, but you've been to a tasting room before, have you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, there's two insights that my research yielded me, and you feel free on this live show to disagree with me. I think one of the reasons people like going to tasting rooms is they want to be told about the wines they're about to drink, ideally from the winemaker themselves,
right,
or someone who is intimately familiar of everything that happened in that glass in that year. Agreed?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's a story.
It's a story. You want that. The second reason people like going to winery tasting rooms is because they like to be left alone. And what I mean by that is I go to a tasting room with my family and friends. Winemaker or someone who's knowledgeable comes and explains the flight of wines I'm about to drink. I get to ask questions, and then they leave me alone. So I can spend the next hour or hour and a half with my family and friends in a space that's just made for me.
Uh-huh.
So that disconnection from anything else, I think, is quite important. And so I took both of those elements and put them into this event series called VINOPOP. Because of the books, I have relationships with winemakers. So for me to get a winemaker to come down or agree to come down, sometimes is a text message. And so that's grown. We don't sell more than 40 tickets per event.
Wow.
We limit the crowd. We've done 43 events.
Really?
We have a relationship with the Pendry Hotel in Newport Beach where we host them. People pay no more than $50 for 5 wines, completely hosted on a journey with a winemaker. So you bring great value to the stuff that we do. And now we're expanding to San Diego and LA.
I was just going to ask you, are you going to scale it? So there you go.
Yeah.
See how an entrepreneur thinks? I got the model. It works here now. Where else can I take it?
Yeah. And I just keep, it's my own, both those projects are my own personal sandbox that I get to be creative and I get to get to do things that may be unique or different without, much risk on I'm going to disappoint somebody or not do what I'm supposed to do. I just get to be free.
So the website is again
for VINOPOP, it's vinopopevents.com, plural. And the book series is called Drive Through Napa Valley and Drive Through Paso Robles, and both of those books are available on Amazon.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell my community beyond the radio show community what this is about, because there's a number of people that would love to. They may already have attended. I don't know, but we're going to come to a future one. So get the tickets early. It sounds like, because they sell out fast.
Another unintended benefit of the events is we get a lot of executives locally who are clients of Slalom who come to my events, and I don't know them, but they tell me like, oh yeah, you work for Slalom, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, we're a client.
Okay. So that's all reinforcing. All right. Well, I told you at the top of the show, we had a good one planned, and you did not disappoint. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And
we appreciate the audience. We've been doing this 15 years now, going on 16 next month.
Good for you.
And this episode will join our catalog of 1,500 episodes over those years. We do about 100 shows a year. So if you're an Orange County entrepreneur or a nonprofit leader and you would like to share your story with our audience, it's easy. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. If we're already connected, send me a message. Let me know. Between Haley, our producer, who's been with us since 2016, and myself, we can get you ready for the next episode. You can be on the show as well. We love featuring Orange County, all things Orange County, entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders. And until the next time, we all have a chance to be together. I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.